I'm Ali Patterson, and welcome to the Fintech Show. In today's episode, we look at the fundamentals behind a bank. So often on the Fintech Show, we look at innovation that will be relevant in the coming years. Fintechs that are aiming for the stars to land on the moon. Today, however, we're going to learn how banks need to get their house in order before they can embark on these innovation adventures. That is not to say that the tech we're discussing on this episode isn't revolutionary in finance. It is. Today's episode is all about the tech your bank needs to leverage first to become the market leader. Joining me in the studio is Gareth Richardson from core banking pioneers Thought Machine, a company that's dedicated to removing outdated IT solutions from banks, an issue that is still widespread in the industry. Morten Sønderskov from the bank Lunar knows how to reach the stars with their platform. Having seen the traditional banking space, Lunar launched with a different mindset, enabling their customers to make the most of their finances without leaving their current bank. Also joining us in the studio is Societe Generale Sohail, their head of execution platforms and UK Chief Digital Officer. I wanted to get the perspective of a large financial institution that knows the importance of updating their core system so they can offer the best in class that their customers deserve. But before we get started, let's catch up with our guests. So Gareth, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
You're more than welcome. Glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Could you just tell us a little bit about your role at Thought Machine and what some of Thought Machine's mission is within the financial services space?
My role is I'm the COO for Thought Machine, but my main responsibility really is all the client projects we do, all the banks that we work with, all those institutions, and then I also work with the partnership ecosystem that we have at Thought Machine and any of the financial products like credit cards or other things that we build on top of our platform. The platform itself is a core banking engine and product engine, but what that means simply is that whenever it's a system of record for whatever any customer has at a bank, or how much money a customer has in a bank. And by that, I mean, if you go to buy something in a shop and maybe you put your card down, that authorization request to see how much funds somebody's got comes to us first to say, do you have enough money? And then if we say yes, then the settlement gets managed and the postings go backwards and forwards. The other piece that we do is a product engine on top of that, which is where we're able to model and simulate and control how a product behaves. So how a mortgage behaves, how much principal you have, how much you paid off, what happens with your interest, etc. Does it get accrued, and etc. So we manage all of those two aspects really.
So Morten, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. Whereabouts in the world are you?
Well, right now I am in Denmark. I am in our office in the second last city place in Denmark called Aarhus. So we also have a Copenhagen office, which is the capital in Denmark, but I'm located in Aarhus.
Excellent. Well, let's talk a little bit about Lunar. So can you just give me a bit of background as to what Lunar exactly is and what is it trying to solve? What's the mission?
Yes, of course. So the story of Lunar has actually been quite interesting, and I was fortunate to join the company just a little bit less than 6 months after the company was initially launched. And from the very beginning, we did not have our own banking license. So we were running on a collaboration with another Danish bank, trying to offer new products to the people out there, to the young people especially. And then we had our own banking license just a year ago, preparing ourselves also to go live with a bank here in Denmark. We went live with our own bank now last February this year. And right now we are in the process of also taking that bank across the Nordics. So we just launched it in Sweden. We're going to launch it in Norway just beginning of January. And again, also moving on to Finland as well. So the ambition right now is a full Nordic play.
Excellent. Well, let's take a step back and have a look at really some of the core underlying infrastructure. I mean, there's a huge demand for front-end services and making them look as fantastic as possible. Why should neobanks or challenger banks such as yourselves, why should you really be caring about the back office, about the back end, about the underlying core infrastructure? Because surely that can just come out of a box and you're sorted, right?
Well, not quite, I would say. I think, there's been so much attention on on the front end offers that all the new players in this field has provided. And I think the focus on that has been good. And by that focus, we have introduced, metrics when it comes to financial services that I think many of the incumbents have never thought about. What is actually the engagement when you're dealing with people and the services you provide on the different platforms. So definitely the front end has had a great impact on the perception of how do you engage with a financial product. But coming back to your main problem, or the main question regarding the core of driving or operating a bank, I think we have had the opportunity of actually more or less starting from a blank piece of paper. We have had the opportunity to build our own backend in the cloud from day one, meaning that being able to be in full control of data, being able to manage your service in a very agile way, not just the way you work, but actually how you develop the different services, how often we are able to bring new services to the market, just update already existing services. So being in control of your own backend has been the core foundation for a company like Lunar to actually be able to provide the front end solutions. And I would say that just going forward, the whole backend is going to be even more critical, because we are integrating with so many different players out there, players that we need to integrate with just to be a part of the financial fundamental infrastructure. So as much as possible that we are able to control on our side, the more we are also able to control the whole development and the whole data flows, etc. So I think it's just something that goes on behind the lines, but it's actually so critical for the whole existence of Lunar.
Could you just tell us a bit of an overview as to your role in your day-to-day at Societe Generale?
Yeah, hi there. Thanks for inviting me along today. My name's Sohail Raja. I've been at SG for about 9 years now. My background is very much around building out platform businesses, which I've done previously at other banks, ABN AMRO and RBS, and I do a similar sort of role within SG. Started out building out the structured products platform when I first joined for our private banking clients for our structured product business, mainly focused at that time Switzerland, and that's now grown out to a number of countries, a number of clients as well. And since then, I've built up the execution platform business for other asset classes within our capital markets business. And recently, in the last few years, also a couple of years, we're looking to build out our digital platform business in the UK as a whole, basing our wholesale markets business strategy to see how we can offer digital solutions both to our clients and also internally within the organization.
So how are you able to actually kind of speed up that digital transformation with old, very large organizations as well as the small, nimbler ones?
Yeah, and there's this is where you get into product complexity as well. I mean, the large organizations, to bring real agility, you've got to bring this. Just doing it as a digital challenger on the side doesn't particularly bring business agility. It just increases your costs and makes you look more modern in some areas, and maybe it enables you to access a market that you couldn't access necessarily with the more sort of, let's use the word I don't particularly like, but millennial type purchasing patterns. But really everyone, through lockdown especially, right, has changed the way that they're working and consuming services. And to be able to do that, you need to have a new way of working. And to get the agility in that, the way the current banks are working is they're having to wrap their old systems in a way that gives them some agility, but it's always a fight. There's always a huge amount of people that are having to make their help to get those systems running. And we, through a process over a period of time, are migrating those banks over onto this new system. And as part of that, it's a whole ecosystem. It's a group. We don't do it alone. I mean, this is a group endeavor of many different people and fintechs, etc., coming together to make it happen. But it's once you've got the culture in, the speed of delivery, and we're already seeing that just through the new tools and techniques and standardization of approaches of doing things that come in cloud native, that allows multiple teams to work independently and not tied to a silo of a single unit that they can't break, which was the old core.
I think it's fair to say you guys are a pretty big bank, quite a large footprint. How can you, at this sort of scale, speed up your digital transformation strategy?
Yeah, so we started our digital transformation program 2015, so that's nearly 5-6 years ago, and I think we were one of the first banks on the street who started that in terms of really, going back to the point about clients, but also looking at a platform agnostic solution that then could be used by any business line within the organization. And I really talk about the wholesale business and what we cover, but SG Markets really does cover right across all of those business lines and asset classes from a capital markets perspective. So we approached it slightly differently in terms of looking at it from a transversal, holistic perspective, and keeping in mind also the culture change and the mindset change that would need to happen as well, or for that to be successful, because you can't really just have a technology solution without ways of thinking, ways of approaching things need to be adapted. It's not going to change the organization overnight, but certainly from a thought perspective and an approach perspective, by focusing on things like use cases rather than thinking about 3-4 year timelines to look at programs of work, which is still important. We still need to have that horizon, but also being very smart in our approach to say, okay, we've got X amount of resources, X amount of budget, these are the skill sets that we have, this is what the client wants, here's the priority, this is the use case that comes out of it. Is it achievable? Is it deliverable? Can we refocus and reprioritize to make those things happen, rather than plan it in a year in advance, because that's not how the market is moving or evolving, and how the, if you look at the fintechs in the B2C space, that's clearly the adoption rate that they're taking and the way things they're delivering and offering solutions to clients is very fast. And that technology and that capability is available not just to fintechs or challenger banks, it's also available to incumbents. It's kind of getting that balance right between the use of technology, understanding that we are in a culture and environment that's been around for over 150 years, and all of that legacy, not just from a technology perspective or any other perspective, but purely from legacy of SocGen and Societe Generale and the relationships that we already have, and trying to get the balance right between the change of approach to our clients.
As an organization that facilitates innovation for other organizations, do you still look to partner with other organizations, or do you kind of go down the create it in-house route? And as an organization that obviously did congratulations recently on your recent round of fundraising, where does that leave the kind of the IP, so to speak? What are you guys kind of actually creating when you're using X company for your KYC, X company for payment processing? What's the approach there?
I sort of alluded to it before when I said it's a team sport. We definitely see there's big parts of the organisation where we bring it together. So if we're working with Form 3 on payment gateways and things like that, working with Fedor in some cases, working with other these sort of partners, we work in all of these areas to make sure that we're able to bring the best of breed, but also the SI partners, working with even from the likes of IBM and Accenture, who know how these legacy systems all work. They know the gotchas of getting the data out. We work extensively with a huge roster of these SI partners, a roster of the technology vendors, and partner to build all those things. I mean, when we're a product company, we don't aim to build all of the functionality, but what we've done is really codified the configuration such that you can write code on that configuration, and that enables SI partners to get involved, that enables other technology vendors to get involved with our APIs, which they can have. We have a program where we give everybody instances and sandboxes to be able to integrate with us beforehand, so they can try it out and see how it's going and try some of these new products and features. But we probably represent people terms, outside of product engineering, we represent probably like 15, 20 in a project for 15 or 20 heads of 200 heads doing this stuff. So it's all part of a team that's doing it. In terms of IP, we're obviously very focused on our IP for our product, and we're very, we covet that and look after it. But there's certain areas where it makes sense to partner out. And the vision is of a cloud native world where everything is running with microservices and horizontally scalable, etc., across multiple regions, giving all the resiliency that we need to give that really starts to replace that mainframe effort. And when you look at that, there are at times in some parts of the ecosystem, there are gaps. And there are gaps that we end up having to fill because we want the end result of the banks getting their agility and other pieces, but we end up going through a set of partners and deciding, actually, there's a gap here, we need to step in and do that. So there have been times, certainly in the last 2 years, where we've ended up spending some of our investor money building aspects of the product which are slightly off to the side, but they fill a hole that is required to be filled. One example of that would be our payment hub that does payment orchestration for BACS. And most people aren't building a full batch-based payment hub. They're building the integrations of it, but it's going to go away. So what's the point? Well, for the next few years, it ain't going anywhere, and most of our banks to actually move across need it. So we've ended up building a payment hub that you can have as part of our platform to be able to orchestrate those things.
What value-added services could we see coming out of Open Finance? What will the email of the internet moment be for Open Finances?
So I think we have talked so much about open banking, open finance for the last couple of years, and much of that talk has been regarding regulation, and it has been regarding standardizing APIs, etc. And to be honest, I think too much attention has actually been paid to the fact, what kind of services are we going to provide once we are done with the whole regulation thing, once we are done with all standardizing of all the different APIs, etc. So now you can actually access all kind of information. So what are you actually going to do about it? And I think what we are really paying much attention to right now, because we have access to third parties information right now, and we are able also to provide that overview in our app so that people can have a general overview. But we are really right now discussing that the true value would be when you are able not only to give you an overview of the different information, which has been the core of many of the discussions so far. We just need to have the overview at what platform, yes, but how do we actually take all those data points, integrate them into one big engine, and that's where you're gonna have the full overview and the full information. That's where you're gonna meet the full engagement from the user, because not only can I have different overviews, but we have actually built an engine that will be able to combine all these data and right now give you the right access, or give you the right information, give you the right, what could I say, how to navigate in your own economy going forward, because we are now providing you with all the different information streams that you are providing or producing yourself with your everyday financial life. That's where I think the core value of these services will actually take place. It's great that many banks have integrated these APIs, so now I can show, okay, I have this account in my second bank. That's great, but at the end of the day, I could just log into that bank account and just see the information there. But I have this account over here with my girlfriend, I have this account over here with my friends, but how do I actually integrate all these information and then provide me with an overall view, overall estimates on how my finance situation will be in the future? That's where I think the core value of all these open APIs will be created.
With the exponential increase in innovation, with a smaller time to market, how important is having a flexible core system?
To share a little bit about what core system is from my perspective, it's about having a platform and an architecture and an environment and an ecosystem that allows us to develop client-led solutions. And I think the platform that we have in place is pretty much has been around for a little while and is evolving continuously. And it's based on, not to get into too technical terminology, but based on cloud, based on APIs, based on open source solutions where it comes, in terms of workflow or dashboard information or widgets or data and how we kind of use that. It's kind of the ethos of SG Markets, and the platform architecture allows us to do that. So when it comes to core systems, I think the language around core systems is changing around what's the right solution for the problem that we need to solve, and what's the use case that's around it, and then see that stack from front to back, say, okay, well, we know it's relatively easy here, there's a bit more of a challenge there, so do we want to invest in that and look at return on investment by investing in that, or saying actually we might have to do another solution, and that could well be that we need to partner with a fintech provider. It could be somebody that's offering a cloud solution that could be related to regulation or a new push on a regulation that one of the regulators are pulling out there. If it's something that can be used by other banks as well, then why not? So we're not just totally inwardly looking, or we do look outside, and we do use open source toolkits and frameworks, but also have our API integration with potential fintech partners as well that might fit into a solution or part of a problem that we might be facing.
Let's look further to the future now. In terms of the fintech and the vendor market in terms of core banking as a whole, it does seem that there is, similar to the way that we're getting a new wave of banks, we're getting a new wave of core banking providers such as yourselves. What does the future hold for Thought Machine, but also this niche part of the industry in general?
Yeah, time will tell somewhat, but I think there's a real place for us to play. Obviously, I think there's a real sense of there's a part of the market. I'll go back to this tier 1 versus tier 2, 3, 4 stratification. The tier 2, 3, 4 has been well served by Temenos, FIS, Fiserv, etc. But the tier 1 market was never available to them to necessarily focus on. The requirements of the tier 1 market are vastly different. Just go back to my Japanese mortgage idea for a minute. They do have 90-year multi-generational mortgages that do pass from one customer to another. And you do have to then maintain these things that were every 10 years there's financial innovation. But that innovation stays, and you have to manage it. So managing products at scale, you need to have engines that are totally flexible to be able to model this stuff. And I think that flexibility is something that really starts to drive an industry in a different way and provides opportunities we talked about before. But more than that, I think for us, it drives material benefit to us to be able to take a customer on a business agility journey, and we're able to really drive in, sort of remove this idea of, oh, what about the core? I was listening to a couple of other podcasts the other day, and someone was saying, oh, well, we can't do anything because of the core. And it's like, well, that we can wipe away that whole conversation and start having a conversation about how we serve our customers of the big banks, who, let's be honest, have the largest franchises for customers and continue to have and will continue to have them in my mind. And from that, we need to bring that agility and that new way of working. And I think that's the benefit that all the new players, I guess, coming into core banking are seeing. They're trying to unlock and drive forward, as well as bringing agility to the lower levels, and then cloud native in and as of itself brings a couple of benefits. Clearly, cost can be one, but it also brings in this stability and the ability to run a platform at scale, and scale up and scale down as you grow and change. So the barrier to entry reduces for the I guess the challenger banks, if you like. If the main bank franchises can't get their heads around this new way of product agility, the other banks will, and they can then go on from there. We've seen relatively simple new banks, if you like, in terms of what they offer to customers, and there's a lot of benefit in keeping it simple. You don't want to start from scratch with something really complicated, but any system sort of tends towards complexity, and we're going to have to manage that as we go through. But I think as long as we can do that in a way of keeping it as easy to manage, as simple as possible, as lightweight as possible, and keep the costs down, we drive a really interesting and disruptive change across the market, because people have been locked into these larger contracts for cause for a long time and spend a huge amount of money on keeping them just maintained and running, up to like 2 or 3 billion a year for a tier 1 bank in run operate.
Where do you see Lunar heading in the future? And I don't just mean from a product perspective. There's a lot of scare stories, especially in the British tabloids, about certain challenger banks and the path to profitability. So where do you see yourself heading in terms of product, but also profitability?
Yeah. So it's a fair question, because I think it's a question that we are all dealing with, and some of the newcomers have dealt with it better than others. From our perspective, we have a Nordic strategy. So we want to be a dominant factor in the Nordics, meaning Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and Finland. And having that Nordic perspective on our strategy also mean that we want to integrate deep in the national infrastructure. So we want to go deep and being able to provide also these small things that only apply for Swedish customers or only apply for Norwegian customers when you're doing financials. So that's one element. And the second thing is that we also want to go have a product portfolio that is actually going to reflect all kinds of financial interactions that you go through during your life. So we're not there yet, but that's the product vision. We want to be a full provider of all kinds of financial services. So not just a niche or like we see some of our other players out there are focusing on. So those are two key elements, and I think the second or the third one, would also be that we are already now working also down a path with collaborations that you would not normally see in a combination with financial institutions. So we also have this vision about bridging, financial products just with other, products that you would not normally see in that kind of combination. So I think it's going to be a combination from our side, being profitable in the future, that we are able to provide the financial products that you actually need during your life. Level 1, level 2, that we're going to do these kind of combinations with other product streams that will actually generate new revenue that we have not seen yet.
Well, that's all we've got time for on today's episode of the Fintech Show. I'd like to thank my guests for showcasing the state of banks' internal architecture currently and how that is impacting their innovation schedules. The core platform is still the heart of the bank, even if people remember the slick interfaces. To all our viewers, thank you for watching, and you can watch the rest of the series and much more over at fintechf.com on YouTube and LinkedIn. See you soon. Bye bye.